seems things won't turn out perfectly when you want them to. And there is one thing you can do. You can sit home back and let the day roll by. Don't you worry and don't you cry, darling. You know we can't always win. We can try. Hold on tight.
This is Return to Health with renowned women's health physician, research scientist, and the author of Awakening Athena, Dr. Kenna Stevenson. Now for the next few minutes, join Dr. Stevenson as she explores health issues and answers that can return you to the days of sound medicine and practical strategies for your own health. It's Return to Health. Well, this is the program that I've been waiting for a long, long time. And Dr. Stevenson, I'm so happy we're going to talk about comfort food today. You know, when I was a little boy and I would come in after a hard day, my mother would give me a cookie and she'd say, "It's okay, Mike." And so what do we mean when we say comfort food?
What scientists mean when they talk about comfort food are foods that, after being consumed, create a feeling of pleasure or contentment in people.
Now, is that sometimes behavioral? Is it always the food, or is it sometimes just something you're used to?
Well, it's a combination of psychological factors as well as biological factors.
So we're interested in some of the biological ones, though. Are there ones that research has shown biologically really kind of calms you down and that sort of thing?
Well, as you discussed, for you, the comfort food was a cookie.
Yeah.
And for someone else, it might be pie or pudding or a hot bowl of chili. There's variation. And most of our preferences for comfort food are developed in childhood, but they may also be developed through having positive experiences while we're consuming a particular food.
Oh. So it could be a good thing, too. Doesn't always have to be around something that was bad.
Well, comfort foods are good, and they do have a place.
So I should know what my comfort foods are, and I hate this word, but exploit them. I guess use them when I'm having problems.
Well, use them wisely. And the way that comfort foods work, again, it's part of our memory of a positive experience while eating that particular food that may make us feel comforted or more content. And it's also the role of those foods as it relates to our metabolism and how they affect the brain. We know that most comfort foods tend to be high in sugar, high in fat, and high in salt.
Well, now that is very unique. I've never thought about that, but I mean, I was just thinking while you were saying that maybe it's a piece of pie or a cookie, and I was thinking, does it always have to be bad things? And now you just said that sugar, fat, and salt were the three primary agents? Explain that to us.
Well, we know that those types of substances, sugar, salt, and fat, are rapidly metabolized in the brain. And when that happens, when there's a high sugar load or high sugar intake, then there are neurotransmitters released in the brain that affect pathways that have to do with pleasure and contentment.
So it's not so much those compounds as it is how fast they react on your thinking processes and that sort of thing.
Well, that's what scientists believe.
Because, you know, we're a fast society. When we eat something, we want something to happen right now.
Most people want that, yes.
When you said earlier that we can use comfort foods to our benefit, how exactly do they work? Do we know exactly what they do?
We do have some studies that give us an idea of what may be going on. We know that attitudes affect the consumption of comfort foods.
Wait a minute, attitudes, explain that. Attitudes that affect the consumption.
Well, for instance, one of the research studies looked at performance on a mental test. Okay, so a mental task. And then they had warm chocolate chip cookies available. And they found that women that performed worse on the test ate more cookies. So they felt bad about their performance. So that attitude of failure may have provoked feelings so that they wanted to soothe their feelings by eating a comfort food.
So there seems to be a very strong mind-body connection here.
I think there is. What we find, however, in men is that they tend to eat more comfort foods when they're feeling optimistic, when something positive happens, they're more likely to consume comfort foods. Whereas for women, they're more likely to desire or crave comfort foods when they're feeling down, when there's a sense of failure or frustration or guilt or anger.
Well, you know, that makes sense when guys are out and they're playing tennis or sandlot football or even making a sales call. Afterwards, they always want to go get something to eat because now it's the time to sort of have that comfort and to celebrate. And women, it's almost at the exact opposite time.
That is exactly what the research shows. We also know that there are differences between men and women when they choose comfort foods.
Oh, tell us about that, when they choose comfort foods.
Well, in studies, men state that they prefer warm, hearty types of foods, such as steaks, casseroles,
I knew you were going
and
to say
soups.
steak. I don't know why. I just knew that.
And women instead prefer comfort foods that are more snack-like: chocolate, chips, ice cream, pastries. And one of the ideas behind this is that who does most of the food preparation in our society?
Well, the women do.
Yes, traditionally it's women. And so for a woman to comfort herself with a warm, hearty meal involves work in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And
So it's not very comforting to them.
ultimately it might not have that same comfort. So she would prefer something that she can quickly get and that's already prepared
And that
for
would be
her.
chocolate or cookies or all of those things.
And for men, it goes back to the tradition or childhood experiences, as you talked about, where you are greeted, you're sat down at the table, and you are served a warm meal.
Well, let me ask you this, because this has always worried me, because I've always done this. What about wanting so much comfort food that you overeat? I mean, what about overeating comfort food?
I think that is a problem. If we go back, say, 100 years ago, comfort foods were difficult to come by. Sugar was a prized commodity, and so it was reserved for special occasions, as was salt oftentimes, or sources of dietary fat. And nowadays, we have those at our fingertips. We have ice cream at the convenience store. We don't have to get out the ice cream freezer and get a block of ice and hand crank it. It's readily available. And so we do now have the temptation to overconsume comfort foods.
Does that have any kind of tie to the studies that show that American youth today are almost all overweight? That's a major problem. Of course, a major problem for all age groups, but especially the youth.
There certainly is an emotional component to overweight and obesity among American children. And a recent study looked at ways that children comfort themselves when they feel stressed. And eating was near the very top of the list.
There it is again, food, right?
Yes. And so I think the challenge is not to avoid comfort foods. Our brain needs these foods. Our mood benefits from these foods. But just to be smart again about how we eat the comfort foods. And so instead of getting the whole carton of ice cream and sitting on the couch and eating out of the carton, have an ice cream bowl. So you have a bad day, you have a bad experience, you're feeling down.
You give yourself the food, but you limit it.
Yes, you give yourself permission to soothe your emotions through the use of comfort food, but you use your special ice cream bowl and your special ice cream scoop and your special ice cream spoon. And when you're done, you're done. Also, with chips. Chips are a very popular source of comfort food for a lot of my female patients. And again, I suggest that they have a chip bowl. And they put a handful of chips in the bowl, they sit down, they really taste and chew and enjoy and savor.
Really let it be comfortable.
That's right.
Not say I can't wait till the next one while I'm chewing the first one.
And enjoy the chips, but then finish. And so not consuming directly out of a bag or out of a carton, because that's when there's the real potential to overeat.
You must know me, because you know that I take the bag of cookies and I'm only going to eat one, and I eat the whole thing of them. And then I'm still not comforted, because now I have guilt, that I ate the whole package.
That is certainly one component of this. When people overconsume comfort foods, then the emotion is not pleasure, it becomes guilt.
And so it's a cycle that's a bad cycle. But what you've said is use the comfort food. Just use it intelligently.
Correct.
So what would be some advice? Are there some comfort foods that you can that are good comfort foods, is it possible to sort of slowly supplement foods that are not good for you for comfort foods that are good? I know like maybe carrots, you get to the place where you eat carrots when you have a problem. I don't know. Is that possible?
I don't really think that's possible, because the primary characteristic of comfort food is that it's high in sugar, fat,
that's why
and
I like
salt. And that is why we crave it, and that's why we need it. And we do need those types of foods.
And
but
it's that
again,
metabolism thing again.
Metabolism. I would put chocolate on the list. And for a lot of my patients, they feel that they need chocolate. They notice a mood-altering benefit of chocolate. And so a little chocolate on a daily basis, I would say, is reasonable. And there are also phytonutrients in chocolate that affect our blood vessels, that may affect our cardiovascular disease risk. But again, don't get the king size candy bar for your choice of chocolate. Do small portions. So bite-size amounts in your purse, in your desk, in your car, and really enjoy those bites. And again, dark chocolate has been shown to have the greatest benefits. So if you're going to invest in a comfort food, I think the dark chocolate is a smart choice for a lot of women.
Well, this has been a great program. What an eye-opener, because so many people just don't know why they're driven towards those foods. But it is, like you said, the behavioral part, but the rapid metabolism of them, and that we need those comfort foods.
We do need them, and I find that a lot of people, when they're trying to lose weight, the first thing they do is they cut out the comfort foods.
And that's exactly what I do. And then I get really frustrated, and then I'm in a big cycle, and I feel sorry for myself, which means I want more comfort food. It's just tough.
So my message is eat the comfort foods, but be wise about it.
Well, Dr. Stevenson, you have a great book, too. Let's talk about your book for just 1 second. They can get it on Amazon.com. Tell us the title.
Awakening Athena.
And they can go to Amazon.com and see your book, and that is a great thing. But we also have several websites, but a website they can get to that's got a lot of this wisdom in it is
oldwayspt.org.
www.oldways.pt.org.
That's correct.
And then they can call and get your tip of the week simply by calling
903-668-5971. We would love to hear from the listeners, maybe sharing some of their ideas or observations about comfort foods or future topics for future programs.
Well, this has been a great program, and so until next time, I'm going to go get me a chocolate chip cookie. It's been really great. Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Dr. Kenna Stevenson and Return to Health. Dr. Stevenson is a highly sought lecturer on a variety of health topics, including women and heart disease, obesity in America, resurrecting the power of touch, media health literacy, gender matters in American healthcare, and many more. Dr. Stevenson's book, Awakening Athena, is available on Amazon.com and at fine book resellers. For health tips or to leave a question for Dr. Stevenson, call 903-668-5971. That's 903-668-5971. Or on the web at www.awakeningathena.com. Join us next time as Dr. Stevenson shows us the way to return to health.